Hey guys, what's up? It's Jeff. I'm back with another episode of How to Play the Game. We're in the last episode of our series on taking and controlling space. Today we're going to be talking about holding space. We have less examples than previously because the ones that we're bringing are pretty high level. We've got Solar versus Cure in the GSL. Without spoilers, these are just two of the strongest players around at the moment. And there's a particular interaction in StarCraft 2 that really well illustrates the point that we're going to be making today. And then I've also got a match of Gaming Gladiators versus Talon from the International that does a pretty good job of actually illustrating all of the points of taking and holding space quite nicely. So, without further ado, let's get into this one. Also, we're going to have a little bit of audio in these videos for a change, largely because the Dota 2 one is very difficult to handle without any audio. It's just difficult to understand exactly what's going on in there. And we'll see how the YouTube algorithm feels about the inclusion of somebody else's audio. But it's purely for educational purposes here, I swear.
But now
okay.
The reinforcing push is coming, and
so
Cure's upgrades will equalize with a Zerg.
Yeah, I thought that Cure was going to go back down through the bottom. When I saw him go up to the top, I thought, oh, well, then there's no way you're going to get out of there. Is this enough with this push? I feel like
so Cure's going to come in here, and he's going to try and set up a position. He's going to use high ground. He's going to use limited surface area. One of the things you'll notice here is that the tanks, by positioning them like this, not only do they have high ground vision, which if you're unfamiliar with StarCraft, when you're on the low ground, you can't see up to the next level of the plane, which means that... I don't have Epic Pen on this computer. Oh well. Which means that you can't target or attack anything up there, and it can shoot at you, and you get to see it through the fog of war when it hits you, but you can't really do anything about that. And all of Cure's units are ranged, so they're all playing the high ground. He's got the tanks set up in a really good position. The melee units don't have a lot of surface area to surround the tanks, which means that they'll live longer. It's a very strong position to set up, and it allows him to, especially with the tanks having large range and good splash damage, make a push into Solar's space.
Hold on against a push like this one. For one lone Ling in the third base there of Cure, actually getting some SCE damage done. 1-1 now completing for the Terran. As Cure is trying to get something done, but Tasteless, here comes the surround.
Yeah, and some of these siege tank shots pretty good, but certainly not enough to take on, what was all those Lings and Banes earlier. But with what we see here now, this is going to be a forced pickup. And honestly, I do feel like this is getting...
So, what happened there is that Solar looked at what Cure's space was, and he said, okay, I can't just fight this. Let me take a second. Let me figure something out. I can just apply pressure and contest the space. I don't have to actually hold it. I just have to, feign some aggression. And then I'll come in and I'll crush this. And that's exactly what he did. He found a way to outmaneuver his opponent and break the static position that was in place. And this is a defining moment in StarCraft, because if the Terran manages to set up a static position that can't be broken, then the Zerg will outright lose at this portion of the game. However, that doesn't happen a ton. It's only 8.5 minutes into the game. That's a little early for a lot of these games to end. But if you're very committed as the Terran and you have lots of resources and lots of units, then you can make this work with a really deep spread of a lot of stuff, but you will still get more or less smashed. You're just going to have more in place than your opponent, as opposed to here where they're actually relatively even. You can see at the start of this fight down in the bottom, the army supply, it's 68 to 72. Cure is up in army supply. He has more stuff, technically, but it's very close. if he had preserved more units from his previous attack or been more all in on this attack and built more units instead of infrastructure, then he would have been able to get a better spread of tanks and more marines and mix in a couple marauders to absorb damage, and maybe he could have made this happen. But as it is, he's still got a lot here, and he gets absolutely smashed. Now we're going to go to Dota 2, and this is a complex game because of the buybacks and the objectives on the map that you can play for, and then also the fact that, yeah, we'll just get into it right away. But the point is that Talon, you can't really see on the mini-map here because of the stupid bar, but Talon has set up a position outside of the Roshan pit because that'll allow them to get the Aegis of the Immortal, which is a free second life for one of the players. It essentially means that you can play a 6v5 fight. Very important objective on the map. Gaming Gladiators wants this objective. The game is very close. It's been going for over an hour. Both sides have been winning at various points. Technically, Gaming Gladiators are somewhat ahead now. They have more gold, which means they have more items. But when you look at this fight, you will see that Talon are set up to try and hold some space here
back to deal with
outside of the Roche
well,
pit.
so they don't want to give over this full set of barracks.
At least it's an AA, so you can still have that big team fight impact from the base.
It is, but
they've finally found a little bit of isolation. No one's claimed that one for right now.
Quinn, he's not going to mess around. Instant rolling thunder.
Gaming Gladiators sees an opportunity.
He's in a lot of danger. Duracho is going to try and close the distance. Savage can
And at this point, there we go. And at this point, first kill decisively in the favor of Gaming Gladiators. They had to go pretty deep for it, but they grabbed that first kill. And then there's a little bit of a turnaround here.
Can Makoto slip under the cover of the invis though? Ace has got the detection. Pulverize slams him into the ground. The buyback to the pivotal thing is they're already back in the middle thanks to Tofu's hell. Can they get any more off the back of this though? Ace is going to try and get onto jabs. They'll separate themselves. Two fights are breaking out simultaneously. Those jabs.
So this is where it gets interesting, and this is where we get to incorporate multiple factors here. So both teams have pretty much gone 2 for 2. The fight's getting a little fuzzy, but Gaming Gladiators are... they're basically winning it. They found a position that was static. They got a good engage off because they have good engagement ultimates and utility in their composition and their draft. And it's gotten sloppy. And both teams have found some opportunity within that, but current situation, Gaming Gladiators have a lot here to win this fight. So, the Talon player buys back and goes to pressure the real objective of killing the enemy team's base in order to win the game. That is applying pressure to divert attention and split resources, and you'll see that they're going to have to split up here.
He just brought back to Makoto. This is an all or nothing play. Quinn's going to need some assistance as well. They'll get the TP in from jabs. They're going for the throne, man. Someone needs...
And so now they've shifted the focus of the fight. A fight that they were losing because they just got cracked open, to be honest. They now have a really good opportunity to win because they've applied pressure to create space somewhere else. It allowed the place that they created that space in, which was down by the Roshan pit, for them to regroup and refocus, and now they're able to recover and play for these objectives in this fight where they've generated an advantage by getting an exit kill in the other area. But you'll see Talon is still down 11,000 gold. They are still, in a lot of ways, behind. But they used...
They're trying to see if they can do it themselves.
But they're not going to have the numbers. Jabs is pretty goddamn survivable. Two fights again are happening. Duracho, he's not with the boys. There could be an opportunity. Duracho and Savage going toe-to-toe. They're going to push him down to the southern...
And this is what's happening here. You see the picture-in-picture because at the bottom, there's a 1v3 fight. And the guys up here, it's 2v3. And they're just buying time. So they've applied pressure, and now they're just trying to survive, because the longer you can live in a position that applies pressure, the more opportunity you give yourself in the game to take advantage of space. The space is down in the bottom corner of the map, where, spoiler alert, Talon gained the kill in this 1v3. And it allows them to refocus and refight towards the Roshan pit, which was their original objective, and then towards the base, where they end the game. At the end of the day, the point here is that if you sit in one position and try and hold it for too long, your enemies will find out where you are. They'll find out how you're holding it, and then they will find out how to break it open. At the very highest level of the most complex games, it can take as little as 2.5 seconds. We saw the initiation for this original fight. It was very fast. Solar's move to crush Cure, very quick and decisive. It only took him as long as it took to reposition all of his units and make sure that they would all arrive at the same point at the same time. So you can set up a great defensive position with lots of powerful stuff to help you defend. StarCraft 2 has the high ground, Dota 2 has the high ground. Dota 2's characters, some of them have just insane abilities for defending the high ground. There was a game that went 90 minutes where, in order to finally crack the high ground in a game where they had a 75,000 gold lead, by the way, 11,000 is very securely in the lead, 75k is like more than most teams ever see in a game. To be that much further ahead of the other team is astronomical. In order to get onto the high ground, they had to find a kill outside of the base, but they did find that kill. They did whittle the enemy down. They did break that high ground hold in a game where they were very, very, very far ahead. Yes, these positions, these static positions, they can be amazing positions. And in a game like Valorant, for instance, somebody can just hit 4 headshots with a sheriff and, you lose the round. That's kind of the nature of a game that's kind of the nature of that game. Not to speak ill of any esport out there. It's just a factor in a game like Valorant or CSGO where somebody hits crazy shots, and if they play their position properly, maybe that helps them. But in a game like StarCraft, Overwatch, Dota 2, in games where there's really strong objectives that you can play on, that the map isn't necessarily super well designed for holding, there's a lot of opportunity to draw people out and win the game and create opportunities by creating the space that you want through applying pressure. And in an instance where you can't apply that pressure to create that space, you can still eventually figure out how to crack the setup. There have been some setups in Overwatch that were based on the idea of, okay, well, you can hit this with everything in the world and you won't break it, and those setups were still broken. You might only get 2 fights against them out of a 4-minute attack, but that's it. That's all you needed. So when holding space, try to do it for as little time as possible. If that space is valuable, you go into it, you hold it for a while. But after a bit, they're going to figure out that you're there. If it takes too long, they will discover, hey, there is probably somebody here. If you walk down A-Long on Haven in Valorant and hang out in the lobby area, and they haven't been towards A in 20 seconds, they will clear lobby at a professional level, or they're throwing the game, because there could be somebody there, because there probably should be somebody there. So go up, take your space, hold it for a little while, but be aware of when that time is slipping away because you need to reposition before it's too late. If you find out that you're not going to be able to get the impact that you wanted, or maybe you're not able to push the enemy team towards you right away or whatever, then you're just a liability at that point, because holding space in almost any game is next to impossible, even games where there are very strong and clear advantages built into the map for the team trying to hold the space. At the end of the day, every team loses by, in Dota 2, every team loses by getting their base assaulted and destroyed. It eventually becomes unholdable space. Now, whether that's just because they're so far behind in the game that it doesn't matter, or because they made some mistakes, it doesn't matter. Can't be held. They had to do something in order to win the game, and sitting there often isn't the answer. I have seen instances in Dota 2 specifically where the attacking team messes up the buyback situation and throws the game away. So for any of you smart people in the comments who want to say, oh, well, I saw this amazing comeback, I think there was one in the International this year, actually, where they held the high ground forever and they eventually clawed their way back into the game and then they reversed it. You know, yes, that can happen in Dota 2. In Dota 2, that is a real thing, but there's so many resources that need to be managed in the game and so much opportunity in the map that it's about holding on to that space until you can do X, Y, or Z thing. It's not about just holding that space forever, right? And yes, there are setups in StarCraft where, you know, the Terran has a big ball of tanks and Marines and Marauders and Ghosts, and the Zerg goes to wrap it and crush it, and they just can't. They don't have enough stuff. That usually comes from being very, very, very far ahead. If you're very far ahead, you can hold space. If you are 5v3 in a game of Valorant, you can hold space with all 5 players versus 3. It's not impossible. It probably shouldn't even be hard. But in an even scenario where both teams have the same stuff, unless you commit all of your resources to a space, and I do mean every single resource, then holding it is literally not an option. You can delay, you can trade, you can create chaos and buy opportunity for somebody to swoop in from an alternate angle and ultimately swing the fight back in your favor. But you can't just sit in that space. And that's it. That's the point. That's the whole applying pressure, taking space, and then holding space. Hopefully this series is helpful. We're going to continue with how to play the game next week, I suppose. And we will be moving on to either information or the fundamentals of strong side, weak side. If anybody has any preferences, leave them down in the comments below. I'll certainly check it out before I get to record my next episode. But hopefully this is helpful for you guys, and look forward to doing that next episode. See you next time.